Step into the virtual studio of DraftToDONE, a designer's podcast. Join Angela Jorgensen and Stephen Lacey as they weave tales from the tactile touch of paper to digital displays, where every draft is the beginning of a story on the path to a successful final outcome.
Hello.
Hey, Stephen. How's it going?
Not too bad. How are things on your end?
Not too bad. So, we're doing a podcast.
We are doing a podcast. I guess it must be something to do with design, because that's all that we really know.
That's pretty much it. I was trying to figure out earlier how much we know between the both of us. So we have, I guess, combined, I hate to say the word, could it be 60 years combined?
Oh, really? That much?
Wouldn't it be 30 and 30?
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah, so we've been doing this for a really long time.
It doesn't seem like that. It seems like we just graduated, a year ago or so.
Yeah, no kidding. And it's also interesting because I know when we kind of talked about doing this, it was like, well, why do we want to do this? And it was like, well, it's interesting today because you see kind of young designers, and it's such a different time, because when we started out, it was just when computers were really starting to come into play.
I know.
And we actually did some things by hand. So I thought it'd be really interesting if we kind of went back and talked a little bit about our experiences and what we went through to become the designers we are today.
Right. No, exactly. Yeah. It's a very different world nowadays. I don't know. I mean, I was actually talking with my daughter yesterday, and just talking about, when I graduated compared to when she graduated, and just the pace seems a lot different. I don't know if when you graduated, if you had that sense that everything was sort of in place, and when you graduated, you just fell into those notches. This is me getting a job, this is me getting married, this is me having kids, and but it didn't really work out that way.
No, it kind of didn't.
It
kind of didn't.
Yeah.
And it was, we went to Nova Scotia College of Art and Design.
Right. I guess we should let people know that. Yes.
Yeah. And it was a very different experience. For me anyway. I know I was very heavily focused on design courses because I knew exactly what I wanted to do.
Right.
And then I was told that you can't just take all design classes. You need to. And, in hindsight, I was kind of like, well, I am paying for my education. I should be able to take what I want. But in hindsight, actually being open to those experiences, especially like in fine arts, like doing hands-on things, that really kind of, I think overall made me a better designer because I learned other things, especially with balance. Yeah.
It's and I know with our foundation experience at NESCAD, it is different than what it is today. I think it was a lot more just because computers weren't really, they were just kind of starting into design, because we had one computer lab with 4 computers. We had like a PC room and a Mac room, and I forget what versions of Macs they were at the time, but they were top notch sort of thing. But so our foundation experience was more focused on the basic fundamentals of drawing and painting, sculpting. I don't
visual arts. There was a visual arts. Yep.
Yeah, but when I was talking to my daughter, she said, there's a lot more different courses that you can take in foundation. It sort of branches out. I mean, she's into textiles, so there's a textiles foundation course, and there's a lot. Seems to be a lot more options for us, or for the new designers going in, to sort of maybe finding something else that they have an interest in.
Okay, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I know when I first started at NESCAD, when I graduated high school, the next thing was it just made sense just to go to an art college. And I mean, I looking back, I was just super naive about the whole thing. I think just I'm just applying to this one spot and I'm going to get in. And I mean, luckily I did. And I guess my portfolio was diverse enough to get accepted at the time. So, but yeah, I mean, when I went in, I honestly, even though I delved into the world of design without really knowing it in high school, when I went to university and discovered this thing called graphic design, I said, oh, I think I like this sort of road to travel down. So yeah, it was a lot of discovery at that time. Yeah.
And I think we were also fortunate too, because in our high school, there was a focus on the arts. So, you know, even in junior high, we did industrial arts and woodworking and cooking and sewing. And I sucked at cooking and sewing. But we were opened up to those. But then when we went into high school, there was art class, there was industrial arts, there was drama, music. So it was nice that there were those options as well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think at that time there was a lot more diversity in what, you know, kids could do. And I'm pretty sure nowadays it's more computer heavy, you know, something that's dealing a lot more a digital approach, I guess you could say, to because I guess that's sort of what the world is, and you have to know how to adapt to constant change. Where we had change obviously when we started, but it definitely didn't seem as fast paced, obviously.
Oh yeah, no, and it's trying to keep up with technology and kind of, like you say, it goes at a rapid pace.
It does.
Because we were around when the first flip phones came out.
Oh, it was years before I even got a phone. So
yeah, I know, right? But I mean, there was experiences that we had in university where you really had to focus on using your hands, especially when it came with designs. Like we actually did page layout by cutting, typesetting, doing, photo mechanical transfers. And I know, a lot of younger designers will know what we're talking about. But it did take longer to do that because you actually had to physically cut stuff out and do it by hand. So I feel that was like, it gave me a real appreciation.
Totally.
Especially when you transferred over to using computers and laptops and the speed at which you could do that.
Yeah.
Back then, when you're laying things out by hand, it's like, shit, I made a mistake. So, here we go. We got to take something out, replace it, do another shot. And it was very time consuming.
It was. And it was a lot more costly back then. You sort of had to have a lot of roughs figure out beforehand, before you even started your final piece. Where I know nowadays it just pretty much goes from an idea in your head to almost a finished piece on the screen.
Yep.
Where I mean, we had we had to buy photo sets of paper to do a lot of these mechanical transfers onto, and we had to use a big graphics camera. So we had to have all these supplies bought ahead of time, and we were in university. We didn't have unlimited funds to buy what we needed. So I maybe a lot more care went into it, a lot more thought, maybe a lot more of a process, figuring out what you really want your final piece to look like.
I would love to know how much money I spent on the dye sublimation printer. Because that was, at that time, was considered kind of a larger format. It was 1117, and it was a really nice kind of glossy paper.
It was, yes.
But when that came out and you ran upstairs to get it and you made a mistake, you're just like, oh no.
Yeah.
There's $20 down the drain.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, which is hilarious. But yeah, I used to make a lot of mistakes.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And it's maybe some of those styles will come back. I know with with NSCAD, they still have their print department, with doing traditional print styles with offset presses and whatnot. So maybe in, who knows, 50 years time, we'll go back to these big graphic cameras and sublimation prints and seeing what it's sort of going from digital to vinyl, that kind of approach. It's like, oh, it has a warmer feel to it. I don't know, but
yeah, no, it's nice. And speaking of which, like, look at the poster here.
Yes.
And so maybe we should talk about the name, how we came up with that. And you actually designed that, which is fantastic.
Yes, it was. I mean, it kind of designed itself with the words. It just like you and I both sort of had the same idea when it came to figuring out a design, because you said, hey, why don't we try this? And I was like, oh my God, yes, that's what I was thinking as well. So it's a process in its own.
Yeah, and that's what I love about it, because it's kind of that gritty draft to that really polished done, and I feel like that's even now, that's still kind of the process.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Even with the technology that we have that is so quick.
Yeah.
And again, it's kind of like what we were just talking about in school. We started out with that hands-on, and then getting that final. And I still feel like that crosses over with new technology. You still have to have those processes in place.
You do. Yeah, no, it definitely is. And it's, I think it all depends on, well, nowadays there's so many resources that you can just do online without even having any, skill to produce a finished piece. But, because I'm thinking back to when I did get my first job. It was a silkscreen job, and so I just finished university, and so they taught us, when you're creating a design, that you start with a draft and rough ideas and sketch it out, show it to the customer, see if this is the right direction, go back to it, and blah blah blah. And but I remember my first job, the salesperson said, I have a customer that I need to show a design to. So I did my rough draft, just really quick pencil, and she's like, what the hell is this? I was like, well, this is the first draft to show them. She goes, no, I need something done and finished and complete to show them. This, I can't show them this because
wow.
I was like, well, that's not what I was taught. This is what I was taught to do. And so it was just funny. I just had to take my 4 years, throw it out the window. Okay, I'm in a sort of a different industry. It was more of a production design business as opposed to a design firm. So I guess it was more quick paced. I don't know. And just do up a really quick, as finished and polished sketch as I could to give to her to show to the customer. And thankfully it worked out. But yeah, it's like, well, what was that 4 years for then?
And see, it's interesting because when I graduated, I kind of went in a different, I went down a different route. Now, of course, everybody always says agency.
Yeah.
I actually ended up getting a job at the city library in the communications department. And I did that for 10 years. Now,
wow, that long.
I know. Yeah. My parents were pissed when I left, because at that time it was always, you have the government job, you have the pension, and you wouldn't think that working at a library you would learn a lot, but
right?
But my boss was actually an NSCAD grad, my first boss.
Yeah.
And I felt like they wanted me because they could kind of mold me to what they were hoping or what they wanted. And that was great. And that's exactly what happened. And I learned so much from being there.
Yeah.
And again, when the year end comes up and you got a little extra money left over, you got to buy shit, or they're going to take away your allotment for
exactly.
your
you don't need this much money then. Okay.
Yeah, for your
we'll send it somewhere else.
Yeah, for your, oh my gosh, what am I trying to think of? For your department.
Okay.
Sorry. For your department. So anyway, we would end up buying large format printers. We had top of the line digital cameras. So we had kind of those toys to play with.
Yeah.
But then, after so long, I felt like, okay, I've learned everything that I need to be challenged more.
Right.
And that's when I made the decision to leave.
Yes. And your parents hated you.
And they were pissed. And it was a bit of an awakening, a rude awakening. I can certainly say
totally.
that.
Yeah.
And then trying to go to something that was supposed to be, quote unquote, like an agency.
Yeah.
It was weird because I was it wasn't really a design job per se. Like what I was doing is they would design menu boards for KFC, Pizza Delight.
Gotcha.
And various fast food places.
Yeah.
So the problem is when I went in, I'd be working with somebody else's file. And it would also be an Illustrator file. And I'm like, why is this all designed in Illustrator? Because I would have done this and then done it in InDesign, whatever. But here I am trying to deal with this and I can't. And then I'm allotted a person to keep track of my time. So they say, you have this much time to make these changes. Right. So honest to God, it would take a shot of vodka for me to get to work, which isn't good. I would get off work. As soon as I got in the car, I would just bawl.
Right.
I would just bawl to the time I got home. I'm like,
oh, really?
What did I do? What is happening?
What kind of shit show they just hired?
Yeah, really. And you know what? But it was such a slap. Like, I'm like, okay, so I just put in 10 years. I'm a hard worker. Yeah. Then I go into this and it's like, why can't I do this?
Right.
And it's such a difference between like a production role and someone that's designing.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, you are taking all your knowledge from university, from your first job. I mean, you're transferring that to whatever the next job is that you're doing. So, I mean, you had this pace and ways of doing things that you were used to, and then you're trying to adapt that to your new job, I think, and then it's not meshing. You're trying to get this square peg into a round hole, and it's just not fitting, and so you have to readapt yourself. But at the same time, you have the skills and everything, and change is a huge, scary beast that you have to try to tame, I guess, in any new situation. And that's what you were going through, I think, at that time. There was so much change, but I mean, you adapted, obviously. You stuck with it.
Well, I got fired. But you know what? And you know what? And it was devastating. And it was, I felt like a failure because I couldn't do the job. But I'm just like, it's not a design job. I'm just trying to do what somebody else already created and make changes. And I'm like, I can't do this. And I know that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like you said, you're also using programs that you never really used before, because I think at the time you were using InDesign as a library.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and here you are using Illustrator, which you would have never needed to use.
So, I used it periodically for, vector kind of stuff, but not doing a full layout with text and Illustrator. I'm just like, Jesus. And the file sizes were enormous, and obviously it worked for them. So
totally.
They had their process, and that was great. But for me to try and come in and do that, it was like, this ain't gonna work. So that was terrible. And then from there, what do you do?
What do you do? Yes. Yeah. What did you do? What was your next move?
My next move was I ended up working for an asshole.
There's a couple of them.
Sorry. And I mean, this is the thing, like, I'm very happy where I am today, but I thought it would be kind of interesting to talk about our experiences. Because I'm finding out now that a lot of younger designers, especially ones that we follow online, and I could be mistaken, but they've never had these kind of experiences.
No.
Like, they seem like, I know I'm jumping around here a little bit, but I just find like I'm watching all their stuff, and I feel like a lot of it is very cookie cutter.
It is, yeah.
And and nothing against that. Like, I didn't know what the hell a mood board was, and I'm like, oh, a mood board. Oh, we did those. We just mocked them up and did them on a board, but we didn't have a fancy name for them. This let me talk
Idea
shit.
board.
Yeah, so from there, I ended up working for this guy that would travel to Asia, like I think it was Hong Kong, buy jewelry,
Okay.
come back and mark up this jewelry like, 75%. So if he bought something for 50 cents, he sold it for $20.
Gotcha.
And again, it was a situation where he wasn't a very nice man.
Yep.
And he would make staff cry a lot. And I'm like, I'm determined not to cry in front of this asshole.
Right.
And again, it was doing things like shooting jewelry and, I would, shoot jewelry, do, programs, do sales books, that sort of thing.
Yeah, because we both have photography experience from NESCAD as well, like traditional photography with film, and
yep.
It was a different process back then as well. So yeah, so you're able to take those skills and adapt it to this new job as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that lasted about 6 months, and I'm like, I have to get out of here. I just have to.
When you're working for an asshole,
when you work for an asshole, you got to go. And he did break me. Sadly, he did at the very end.
Okay.
And I'm like, I'm not going to cry. And I'm just like, But then, so then from there, I moved on. But let's talk about where you started and where you went. And
yeah, man, that was a while ago. But I worked at like I said, my first job was sort of industrial design, I guess, related, but it was a silk screen shop in Halifax, and learned tons. And thankfully, they were still, they were keeping up with the time, I guess, but it was still a lot of hands-on. We were still using Rapidograph pens. I don't know if you remember those from our design days. Yeah. So one of the first things that we had to do was buy this set of Rapidograph pens, and I was like, oh, okay, whew, that's this is what I'm used to.
You're familiar with that?
Yeah, so it was, and we did have one of those big graphics camera like we had at the print shop at NESCAD, except the one at NESCAD, I think half of it was in one room and the other half was in like a dark room. Yeah. So in this case, the whole camera was in its own room, and I had the developer and the stop bath and the fixer and all this kind of stuff to create the film that they would have to take back to create screens. And so not knowing at the time, but I developed a passion for silk screening. I really love sort of the hands-on thing, and I didn't really know it at the time because I was sort of neck deep into it and wasn't really paying attention to what it really meant to me at the time. But it was a very hands-on approach, and so we just create custom illustrations for people. Sometimes it was pub crawl T-shirts. Sometimes it was recreating artwork. There was a couple artists that they would send us photographs of their paintings, and we would have to they say we can only afford 3 colors, but we need you to make it look like 6 colors. So it's like, oh, okay, how hard can that be? So one of them, which looking back I just fell in love with, was Art Gallery in Nova Scotia would commission us to do a Maud Lewis print every year.
Oh wow.
So, like she has one with the cows and the cats, and so it was taking one of her paintings, and I would talk with the production manager and say, okay, we're only able to do 5 colors, but it looks like there's 12 colors here. He goes, yeah. So we have to do a lot of mixing and matching of colors. Thankfully, it was on a white T-shirt, so we didn't have to use white as a color. But from that, looking back, I think that's sort of what instilled in me is this sort of passion for silk screening, and just like taking this idea and breaking it apart and then putting it back together on a different medium. And it was just like, wow, that is amazing. And it's yeah, so I was probably at that spot for 5 years, and it was good, really good job. It was also commission based, so we did have a lot of touristy type of T-shirts that different tourist companies would get us to create the artwork for, and so depending on how many shirts were sold, I think we got, I don't know, 15 cents per shirt, and sometimes that check was bigger than my paycheck, so it was a nice thing to to get every once in a while. So, but unfortunately, it's had to leave at some point, and yeah, and here I am now with a bunch of other jobs in between. But
right, and I think we don't want to kind of tell everything in the first podcast, but I think it would be nice to kind of even continue on, because it gets yeah, it gets better, it gets worse, it's a process, and it kind of made us who we are today. And and when you go through certain experiences where you have to hustle, then your confidence builds.
It does,
and you have no choice. You have to heat your house. You can't. Yeah, you have to pay bills. You have to heat your house. And at one point, I became a pro at bleeding a line when I kept running out of oil. But these are the experiences that build character and make you who you are. And I think moving on and moving forward, we can certainly talk more about those experiences as well, because I don't want to kind of give everything away on the first podcast. But
and so I mean, this is sort of an introductory to who you are, who I am, and sort of what molded us into becoming designers. And because we both have a pretty big passion for design.
We do, and it's interesting because even for the past 30 years, like whenever I had a question or I was stuck on something, I would just be like, Stephen, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And because you have a skill set that I don't have, and you actually, my business logo you drew. My dog Tuca. Yeah, she's the image. She's the face of my business. So so it's nice to have that. To have someone that you can call on and be like, hey, you have a strength that I don't have, and that's really. And I've learned a lot just from working with you as well. So. That's why I thought it would be good also for us to do this, because, your logo design is and your drawing skills, something that I wish I had.
Oh, you got them. You got them. But I mean, your passion is definitely with more layout design, I guess. Like with your first job at the library, you had to. I think you had to work on putting the monthly, what was it, a catalog or like a events calendar sort of?
Yeah, it was called the Library Guide, and it was because at that time I got hired because of amalgamation. So the one main library ended up becoming 13 libraries.
Right. Yes.
So we would create this little publication that we would put in all library programming and services, and because that was happening at each individual library. So that kind of opened me up to learning about page layout.
Yeah.
And the one thing that my boss told me at that time, shout out to Rick, was that in doing a page layout, and this was just, again, design can be subjective, but I always feel like there's fundamentals that you should carry with you.
Right.
And he said, always have a focal point on your page, because you need something to grab the attention, you need something to bring the eye in, and you need something to focus on, because if not, you're just going to be
all over the place.
There's nowhere to rest your eye. And that really stuck with me. And I still remember him saying that, because that when doing layout, I remembered him saying that. And doing page layout, I knew deep down that I wanted to work on a magazine. So, maybe in the near future we can talk about whether or not that happened.
Exactly. Yes.
On another podcast.
But yeah, so I mean, you have this passion for layout and just knowing how things fit and color compositions, and it's there's all these little nuances. I think with layout that I could use on my end when I'm creating a logo or whatever, and um, just like any design, I guess it's there's the fundamentals when it comes to creating a design, but when you have a passion for it, all those skills are sort of like muscle memory. It's just there. You just know how to put it all together. So I'm kind of envious and jealous that you have that sort of skill that it's just there it is.
Oh, thank you. Well, sometimes it doesn't quite go like that, but you know what? Sometimes when it works,
Yeah,
it's like an endorphin
it
rush.
is.
It's like,
Yeah.
I just love the way this flows. I love the way
Yep.
this font works with this, and it's just like a little mini high, and it's
It's
like when you got it.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's it's just crazy sometimes how it works. And yeah, no, when you were talking about, with Rick showing you how to do this one little thing, it reminded me of this back in university when I was discovering Illustrator for the first time. And it was in, I think, one of the Mac rooms. And yeah, it's just it's one of these memories that has stuck with me, and I have no idea why. But so I was learning Illustrator for the first time, and I was trying to create a logo because I thought, I want to freelance, and so I was trying to create this logo, and um, I was there with the pen tool creating this vector logo and click, 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 making all these dots and everything. And this woman just randomly looks over and she goes, you could do the same thing with a lot less dots and use like Bezier curves and your handles. And I was like,
Yes.
okay, right. Okay, so I did that. And I was like, and ever since that day, I was like, oh my God, I don't remember the class teaching me that. But this random woman just looking over and said, hey, it would be a lot smoother and faster if you use less dots and more handles and your Bezier curves. And it's like, and just one of those little life lessons is minute as it was, has stuck with me to this day. And it's just weird where you find inspiration sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I thought what would be fun in a future episode is we have some of our projects that we've actually we've created in university, which I thought it'd be fun in a future episode to show, right?
Totally.
Because I think it would be really fun for people to kind of see some of the stuff that we used to do. Because I remember being in the in drawing with Professor Ludwig.
Yes, Ludwig Scarf.
That's right. And we'd be trying to draw, and I'm literally in a coat because there's no heat and it's freezing. And then in the summer, we're packed in that small computer room with no air conditioning, so you're just dying of heat and sweating. So it just kind of went from one extreme to the other.
Right, exactly. Yes. Dealing with all these elements. Yeah.
But again, building character, I guess.
Totally. Yeah. It's not all roses wherever you are creating designs. So. Maybe it was on purpose.
Maybe. That's right. So I thought, we can kind of skip ahead a little bit because, like I said, I don't want to kind of cover everything in the first episode.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll kind of stop there, but just talk about, because we both now run our own kind of freelance business.
We do, yeah.
Yes.
We have our full-time jobs. Yes, we also have our freelance kind of gigs that we do. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's going to be another thing that I'd like to talk about too in a future episode is that, we both work full time and we both have a side hustle. And why are we doing that? And we can kind of talk about that. But I thought, if we want to end the podcast today, just talk a little bit about the name of your business and kind of what you specialize in.
Right. Well, I guess going back just a little bit, I mean, I did freelance for 10 years. I sort of went through a couple iterations in names. but I started off as scratch graphics, sort of alluding to you're starting from scratch when with every new customer sort of idea. That was for the first, I don't know, 7 years. I probably went by that name, but then, yeah, I just needed some kind of change, some kind of refresher approach to the whole business model, and so I ended up with Deep Waters Creative, and it's a lot of print related design, anything from business cards, book covers, posters, window graphics, whatever. It's we're both from that time that web design wasn't a thing.
Right.
When we graduated from university, I think our first jobs sort of like, oh, we have these things called websites now, and you have to learn how to use email, and so I never really fell into that whole end of design. I mean, I can do sort of basics when it comes to web design, with the template sites, and then change it up accordingly, sort of thing. But I typically stay away from those. If I need a website done for a customer, I know people that can do it. Depending if how complicated or simple it is, there's people I know that can do a lot better job than I can when it comes to doing sort of web-based graphics. But when it comes to the print end of things, that's where my passion is, and so that's where I like to sort of keep it. There's the introduction of AI, but that's a whole other beast. So we won't go into that one. Yeah. But yeah, so there is a freelance business, and I've been doing that for a number of years, and I've met tons of great people through it, and some great customers, and there's a bunch of highs and a bunch of lows, of course, when it comes to freelance. A lot of hats that when I first started out, I didn't realize were hats until I was like, oh, I got to wear that. It's like, okay, I got to do this as well, and yeah, so it was a huge learning curve when starting it.
Yeah, it's. Yeah. I ended up doing the same thing. I actually tried doing a business at one point,
right?
Just solely doing a freelance business.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, I'll join a networking group.
Yes.
So basically, every Thursday you go down to the hotel, and there was a bunch of business people, and you would do a pitch.
Right.
And the one thing that I learned really quickly is I can't stand up in front of people and talk.
Right.
Even doing this podcast, I was nervous. And this isn't my first podcast. I've done a podcast before.
Right.
Yes. And the first one that I did was 30 minutes, and it took me 5 hours to edit it. Because I was so nervous.
Yes.
Pardon me. I was so nervous that my face was doing weird things. My lips were quivering, and and I think it's the more you put yourself in those situations, the better it gets.
Oh, it is.
I keep telling myself that,
you
but
have
you're
this
right.
New skill set now that you can use and adapt and work into your own freelance business if you wanted to. So.
Yeah, and I mean, even in university, when I worked for, at that time, Tip Top Tailors, when I was going to school, we did customer service training.
Yeah. Okay.
So it wasn't that you could chew gum or you could stand there and not do anything. You always had to be doing something, whether or not it was folding shirts, and that was the thing. And you had to do it, because if you didn't do it, you would get in trouble.
Right.
And I didn't want to lose my job. Right. So
no.
It was things like that really instilled that work ethic.
It is, yeah.
So, and what you're saying is, when you have to hustle and try and survive, you have to learn how to market yourself. And think about it. This was way back before really the internet was as big as it is now.
Right.
And there was no Facebook. No. I don't think.
I maybe it was just coming in.
Yeah, but we never utilized it to to the degree that it is used today. It was more of a just talking like a MySpace or whatever it was. So you really had to get yourself out there and really, you know, hustle. And like you said, the marketing, the accounting, the, you know, trying to get clients and then trying to do the work and then clients not paying you on time. It's just,
yes, exactly.
It was, it was difficult for sure.
It was. Yeah. I mean, again, I think I went into it naively thinking that, okay, I can design, I can do these things, and people are just going to come to me. I'm going to do it. They're going to pay me, and then I move on to the next one. Blah, blah, blah. But again, that's not how it works. You could be
no, it's not.
You could be this like incredible lighthouse of talent, just could do just everything when it comes to design. But if you don't turn on your light, nobody's going to find you.
Yeah,
kind of thing. So it's you know, yeah, and it took me a while to realize that my light wasn't on.
And it's very vulnerable to put yourself out there.
Oh
and
yes, yeah.
You know, and you know, going through circumstances where you're just like, oh, why did I say that? Why did I do that? But it's those circumstances that, like I say before, the more you do it, the easier it gets. And
totally, yeah.
You know, I can honestly say, you know, after 30 years, I feel confident enough to say that I'm good at what I do.
Right. Yeah.
But it's taken me that amount of time to feel good about saying that.
Exactly. Yeah, it's crazy. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's it's amazing. Just the biggest obstacle I know for me personally is myself. I will critique myself to the point that, you know, the project could be almost finished, but it's like I really don't like the direction it's going in, and then starting completely over again. And it's when it comes to promoting yourself, I hate tooting my own horn. I hate, you know, talking about the skills I have and, you know, what I've learned, and just but it's again, it's things that you have to do if you want to become not just successful, but just to be able to pay the bills. It's a skill set in itself, promoting yourself. I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And my business is called Karmic Pup. And I know it's kind of one of those things because, you know, I, like you, went through a few iterations of a name. Like I was Prom Design and Design Zone, and nothing seemed to really fit. And then I decided to change it again, and it was like, well, what can I call myself? And everything is taken, so it's really hard to come up, you know, anything with ink, with design, with gone.
Yeah.
And then you know, we can get into it in future episodes, but I'm a true believer in karma. And good things, if you're a good person, good things will come to you. If you're an asshole, well, hopefully karma will come and bite you in the ass. So that's where Karmic came in. And I know Karmic Pup. Pup is because, as you know, I'm like a huge animal lover and rescue reptiles, and I have a dog and a cat. And you know, my dog Tuca kind of became the face of my business because, you know, I also have that passion. You know, I love to do things with animals, so I wanted to include that as well. So that's how the name Karmic Pup came about.
Nice. Well, I mean, that's the thing. If you're able to include your other passions into what you do, into your other passions, I mean, why wouldn't you? So it's it's a great name, and you know, it's a lot. There's a lot more meaning behind it than what, you know, I came up with. Mine was like, you know, I live on the South Shore, so I just wanted something that was kind of water related. So, but everything else kind of didn't really feel right, and I thought, well, I could do a lot with like deep water. So, you know, a play on words sort of thing, and
but I think you're selling yourself a little short there because there is a lot of meaning about that. You know, and it's like, And it's like, I said with my hooked rugs, and we can talk about that later, is that I find that they're very graphical. So I went to my boss and I'm like, well, these are very kind of graphical. They're not considered art. And she's like, but you have to understand that when you look at it, that is art because that's you. And I see everything that's in these rugs is about water and about ocean, and that's about where you grew up, and that's about who you are. So it's kind of like what you're saying. There's a play on words, because deep water you can certainly do a lot, but it also is a bit about who you are, because we both grew up on the water, and that's think a huge with who we are.
It is, yeah.
It's an important
picture not being near water.
Yeah,
it's it's one of those life forces that that you don't know how strong of a hold it has on you, but until you don't have it near you, I guess.
Yeah, and it's funny because when I graduated high school, I was going to head to Toronto.
Right. Yeah.
Because I got accepted at George Brown, and then I had spent a summer in Toronto with my sister prior to that, and I'm like, I can't do this. There's no way in hell. Because Lake Ontario, whatever is there, but it's not the ocean.
It isn't. No.
And I'm like, yeah, I know. I have to be on the ocean.
Right. Yeah. So it's it has a special draw for everybody. Everybody has a story, sort of why they love living near the ocean, but the same goes with people that live near mountains or in the prairie.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's whatever that force is. It's what keeps you there. Sort of like I could move on to different locations, but there's something that sort of keeps you here, and it could just be just the elements itself, but
yeah, absolutely,
it's another thing. So, and
I think we're also going to create some social media for our podcast. So
probably yes.
Yeah. So this is the first episode. We're just kind of getting our toes wet and see if how it's going to go. But I'm enjoying the conversation.
Totally.
And I want people to be able to reach out if they have questions for us and that sort of thing. So maybe we'll set up some emails, some social media, and and next episode have all that put together.
Right. Yeah. It's because we also want to have a YouTube page.
Yes.
YouTube, whatever you call it. YouTube site. So just a bunch of different platforms that we could sort of discuss what we talk about when it comes to design, and just the different approaches, and see this how it all works out. But
yeah, and I mean, sometimes we may agree on things, sometimes we may disagree on things, which is kind of fun as well.
Totally,
and maybe get some special guests on and talk to other people in the field and get their opinions, and I think it'd be a lot of fun.
It would be. Very unique. I mean, well, especially for me, like you said, that you've done a podcast in the past. You are familiar with it. I think you do. With where you are currently, you also do video as well. And but this is all brand new to me. So so there's probably a lot of editing you're going to have to.
No, I think it's good. And like I said, when we did this, it's like we're not going to go in with any notes. We're just going to have a conversation, and I think that's the best way to do it, because it's it's from our heart. It's honest, and
it is, and it's going to. I'm sure there's going to be changes along the way, sort of different formats, possibly, or who knows what changes will happen. But I think the basis where this is more just a conversational back and forth. There's nothing really. There might be point forms that we talk about, but for you and I, just to be able to have a conversation about what we love doing on a daily basis. So
and maybe I'll need some advice, and
totally same. Obviously.
And we can bring the artwork on and talk about that as well.
Yeah. No, that would be fantastic. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if there's if there's a wrap up or how that works, or
I don't know. I mean, we could do one more quick fun thing if you want, because I've been struggling with something.
Okay. Yes.
And so it could be fun just to kind of, I'll talk a little bit about what I'm doing. So I have a client.
Okay.
And this is really out of my wheelhouse because he owns a junkyard. So it's kind of a, and my design tends to be really clean. And so I ended up doing a whole rebrand for him. And I was doing a sign and I got stuck on the sign.
Okay.
So I'm going to try and do a share screen and bring it up on the site. If it doesn't work, I'll edit it out, but hopefully, fingers crossed, this works.
Right.
Don't judge me if you see my desktop because it's terrible. Let me see here if this is the right. Oh, you can see that, can't you? We'll just hide that.
Yeah.
I know, right? I'm terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Okay, can you see the screen?
I can, yes. Yeah.
Okay, so just bear with me here. Okay, so this is the first one. You see that, Stephen?
I do, yes.
Okay, so this is a really large sign, and I kind of, oh, this isn't the first one. Shoot, just bear with me, sorry.
No.
See, this is what happens, and you know.
Right, right.
Okay, no, I think we're good. So my issue was this, and this is kind of a designer 101. I should have known better.
Okay.
But I sent this to the print shop.
Okay.
And he sent one back that he had a ghosted triangle behind the logos.
Oh, yeah.
Because I should have known better when that printed.
Okay.
They're probably not going to stand out.
Yeah, I mean, until you said the logos, I kind of did have to search for them. It's like, oh, there they are. I mean, I'm sure that they are to do with certification.
Yes.
Yeah, and it looks like a recycling logo there. I mean, the way you have it set up where it's a triangle, I think that really works. Where you have the recycling logo on top, how it comes to a point. I think that's that really works. And I get that those are kind of just passive logos to say that this salvage yard is certified in whatever it is. But I guess they have to be there.
He wanted them on there.
Okay.
And I'm struggling with, okay, how do I make them stand out? So then I went from there to doing this, which was kind of a fail too, because I thought they didn't have reverse logo, any type of a reverse logo. So I thought, can I change it white? That wasn't working. So I thought, can I put a white outline on it? But it was interfering, and that's quite detailed, that car. So that was a fail too.
Right. Yes.
But I did introduce this transparency to the green, which I thought worked really well.
It does, yeah.
So again, it's kind of one of these situations where I had to sit with this for a while.
Right.
And I was just like, I have no idea how I'm going to fix this or what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I mean, when I first looked at it, the one thing that that jumped out is that it didn't really say salvage to me. It's like it looks more like a mechanic. Like this person is there to fix the car instead of like taking pieces off to to recycle or sell parts. But so that's the thing, because if you were to show like a junkyard with dilapidated cars all over the place, that's not a very appealing image. But at the same time, he's not trying to be pretty. This is a salvage yard, so you don't really have to worry about if the image is appealing in that sense.
And I should mention too that he also has mechanics, so they fix vehicles.
Oh, okay. Right.
So yeah, so that's why, and maybe that should have been, certified auto recycling and mechanics or car fixers.
Those car people. Yeah.
Yeah. So from there, this was my solution.
Okay.
And I struggled. And I know a lot of people might cringe and not like it, but again, I wanted to maintain the balance.
Yep. No, that does work. I mean, you can see the logos right
Okay.
away. Definitely in that sense. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. When I know that you and I have both struggled when it comes to when a customer says, okay, in this case where I want these logos attached, you then have to go and find these logos, and most times they are this tiny JPEG on some obscure website, and
Yeah.
you're like, how am I going to work with that? So it's I know personally I've had to recreate logos in order to put them in advertisements just because it's the quality was so bad and so low. But yeah, the way you have it here and how you have it's where it's more the first logo is more red dominant, the second one's green, third one's red, last one's green. So you have that good balance that way. I mean, you could also have so that the two red logos are on the outside and the two green are on the inside to have that kind of balance. But
Oh
think,
yeah.
yeah, I think either way
Nice.
works definitely because yeah,
Well,
it's. Oh, sorry.
go ahead. No, you know.
Yeah, no, I didn't know if there was one if he was like this logo has to be first because it speaks more of what we do here, and this is what it was harder to get the certification. I don't know what kind of sort of
Yeah,
history.
no, there was no history in regards to how the layout of or how the order of the logos were going to be. So,
Right. Yeah.
but I did get the final, and this is what I found really interesting too, because I actually liked the finished version better.
Right. Yes.
Because to me, it actually feels a little grittier
It does. Yeah.
and less
Yeah.
polished.
Right. Right. Yeah. Because is it because it's CMYK or is it because of just your screen color resolution setup? Is that what the difference is, or?
I think so. Also, this is done on an aluminum the
Oh, okay.
sign.
Yep.
Yeah, so that may have
Gotcha.
something to do with it as well.
Right. Right.
And I actually just wrote about this on my website on the blog because I was talking about the difference in color between my artwork and this here. And I
Yeah.
said, you have to be careful because in order to get exact color, you either have to color calibrate your monitor, which we did at the
Yeah.
library. This guy came in and had like this alien thing that stuck to the
Oh, really? Yeah.
that
Yeah.
stuck to and
Yes.
he color calibrated it to our large format printer.
Okay.
The other option, of course, is your Pantone colors.
Yes.
So if you
Exactly.
did your Pantone color swatching and matching it up, then you would get the exact color.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But I ended up being pleased with how it turned out because I struggled with it a little
No,
bit.
totally.
So
Yeah. And I do like the watermark that you have in the where the saving the planet one vehicle at a time. Um, I don't. I think if you didn't have that, it would have been not that he doesn't want it to stand out, but I think it would have stood out too much, possibly.
okay.
Yeah. So having that sort of that watermark in the background sort of softens it for me.
And this is what's really interesting because I did an ad for him on his Facebook because I do some of his social media.
Yeah.
And I found out that also he has a female clientele
Oh, really? Okay.
as well.
Yes.
So I really took that into consideration because I didn't, it's easy to do things that are very masculine
Yeah.
and, but I also wanted some softer elements so that it would appeal
Yeah.
to a
Totally.
wider audience. And
Yeah.
so
Okay.
I'm hoping that I was able to achieve that. So
Totally. Yeah. Like you said, this is outside of your wheelhouse, especially with the type of client it is.
Hmm.
So yeah, I I think what you were trying to achieve, yeah, works wonders. So so
Cool.
is it a signage outside of his shop?
Yeah, it's going to be on the side of the road. So there's actually two of them that he had printed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so he's going to have them up on a post
Right.
so you can see
Okay.
them in both directions. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The only other critique that I would say, depending on where it's going, if it was going above his shop, the way it works or the way you have it, I think works. But where if it's on the side of a road where you have cars passing by pretty quick, I'm not really sure what element they're going to see first. If they're going to see the graphic first or the information first. So I don't know if maybe the balance could have shifted for where
Okay.
the signage that's going on the road, because the people are going to he's going to want the people to obviously see, you know, the name and, you know, how to contact him, and that would be the element that you would want to stand out more as opposed to what the graphic is. But that would be my only critique.
Ah,
So
yeah,
so
that's
sort of change the
interesting.
balance that way. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting because I was, because the first thing that you brought up was, the fact that it looked more like mechanic stuff, but yet
Right.
it's a junkyard, but he combines both.
He does. Yeah. Yeah.
And the way that I looked at it was I wanted the visual to grab first.
Right.
But then I also was like, okay, should I put other elements in like, you know, tire changes, mechanic
Yeah.
on site? And then I'm like, well,
Right.
people aren't going to read that.
No, exactly. And that's the thing I think when it comes to signage, you want it just you want the main elements to grab the people's attention. You don't need all those other elements for signage per se.
Right.
You know, when it comes to a business card, sure. When it comes to the website, yeah, you want to list everything. But if it did have to be added, I think if it stood out in like a bullet form, just so that it was if he wanted the people to know what he did from the signage, then
Mhm.
yeah, have that element sort of stand out more so than even the logo, I would say. Like,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
so I mean, that's my 2 cents, but because yeah, I just know that, you know, you have people driving by and you only have a fraction of a second to see what the sign is, and
Right.
so you the focus on uh, what yeah what you're trying to have the people see first, I guess, should be your main focus. But like I said,
Yeah.
that's no, I don't know. It all depends on where. If it's on the side of the highway, yeah, you have even less time. But
It's not. It's on Port House, so it's on the Sunrise Trail.
okay,
Yeah. So
there you go.
yeah, it's very
It's a slower,
rural. It's very
yeah,
rural.
right. Okay,
But yeah,
yeah.
no, I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
That's
and
great.
where he's local, I mean, a lot of people would already know about him, I would think,
Yep.
because that would be his clientele. He's not looking for tourists. He's not looking for people out of town. He's trying to attract people that are already there.
Hmm.
So in that sense, I mean, you don't really need, I guess the rules can be shifted or bent slightly depending, because it's depending on who your main customer is that you're trying to attract.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah,
So I
yeah,
thought that would be fun too to bring on some
definitely.
things like that and kind of talk through it. And maybe
Yeah.
I should have had a discussion with you before I printed the sign. But
Next
I
one.
don't know. Yeah, that's right. I don't know. I kind of like the image because
Yep.
I kind of wanted that to draw the viewer
Exactly.
in. But
Yeah.
so yeah,
No,
it's
it
fun, isn't
definitely
it?
works.
It's fun. It's
It is.
design can be subjective, and
It can be. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
It's well, that's the thing. When you're showing something to other designers, we obviously see something different than what I'm not like we have any superpowers or anything, but just from our training that we know what elements to look for, that how things should be laid out to attract you know different customers. Even when we go to Walmart and we look at signage and we just cringe sometimes, because it's like, what are they thinking? But other people look at it like, oh, okay, this is for $12.99, but we're just looking at the the layout and how horrible it is. It would stand out more if they did this change to it or did this to it. And sometimes it can be pretty daunting for you and I when we are in public and just sort of on this constant critique mode, that how things can be improved. So.
And there could be designers that looked at the sign that I just made and they're just like, well, no, I would have done this and I would have done that. And what the hell is she doing? And that's okay, and, I would also love to have conversations with designers that disagree and maybe have that conversation. I think that would be kind of interesting and fun as well.
Definitely. Yeah. No, it's, there's so many differing opinions and whatnot. And sometimes it's refreshing just to see or hear ideas that you never even thought of when creating something that, maybe it's a whole different approach that would work way better.
Yep.
So it's going to be interesting to, just to see what other professionals have to say, and what, maybe it's way over our heads. We have no idea.
That's
No way
right.
you did was fantastic. So.
Oh, well, thanks, Stephen. But and again, it's always nice to bounce ideas off and get, like we're saying,
totally
different points of view, different feedback, and
exactly
really make you think about the direction and what you want in the outcome for your client as well.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm working on one now that it's a struggle. I mean, it's it's a book cover, and it's the title is just really I can't think of the word, but to try to come up with some kind of graphic to go with the title was a little daunting. So it's sort of morphed into different iterations of what it was originally, and so it goes sort of going back to basics, because he wants it to be appealing across all genders, and where right now it's kind of masculine heavy, and
okay.
so he just wants to sort of get away from that, and so we're sort of taking it back to the basics, where it's just going to focus on just font usage and text layout, no graphics at all, and just trying to get the message across that way. And it's not easy. It's
actually, why don't you put like what I just did with my sign?
Yeah.
Put a couple slides together, and then maybe next episode we can you can kind of take us through it, and
right,
because I really enjoyed that. I think it's fun, and just to show other people kind of our process and what we do.
Yeah. And I know for me that it's always tempting to, when creating something, to I guess just because going back to my silkscreen days, where give them as close to a finished product right away, just so that they see what my thought process is. And then I sort of realized with this project that I could get a lot more ideas to him if I just did pencil sketches really quick, and then have accompanying sort of graphics to say, this is the approach that with this quick sketch that I was thinking, and sort of give an explanation. And so I mean, it's a learning process, and I think that from now on, I think that's more the approach that I should be taking, that instead of investing all this time in trying to create a clean draft, just
right,
this is something that's really rough, but have accompanying material just to sort of give them an idea of what I'm thinking. And it's a bit scary because, relying on illustration skills that I haven't used in a long time, and just, trying to develop that skill back again. So
Right.
yeah. So it's it's a big learning curve, but yeah, no, I'd love to. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
That'd be really interesting, I think.
Yeah, totally. Exciting.
All right.
All right.
What do you think? Should we wrap up the first episode?
Sounds good. If that's okay. Unless you had something else you want to get out?
I don't think so. Like I said,
No?
this was the first episode.
Okay.
We're getting our feet wet.
We are.
And then we'll set up our socials and
Yes.
have an email address, and if people want to reach out and contact us and have any questions, that would be great.
Yes, exactly.
And yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that's it for now.
That is. This is fantastic.
So I'd like to thank people for listening. Hopefully you'll listen to future podcasts.
Yes.
And like I said, we'll have everything set up for our next episode that you'll be able to reach out and contact us.
Yes. That's exciting. I can't wait.
It is. I know.
Yeah.
It's fun, isn't it?
It is. It's very fun.
So hopefully we have bored people to death. But again, I think, like I said, as we go on and we talk about some of our experiences, we've been through some shit,
We have.
And I think it's, it's fun to kind of talk about that and look at our experiences. So yeah.
It is. No, this has been fantastic, and I can't wait to do more.
All right. Well, thanks, Stephen. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
And thanks everyone for listening. And
yes, thank you, everyone.
Yeah, and we'll have the next episode out probably in a couple weeks.
Awesome. Yay.
All right, Stephen. Thanks so much.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
All right.
Angela.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay.